In the news tonight, His Majesty denounces a terror attack on Bamako yesterday that killed over 20 people. And the Malayan president says Mali, like others targeted, will not shut down because of the attack. Russia's foreign ministry says London should cooperate with Moscow in any airstrikes in Syria, as David Cameron plans to extend the UK military operation beyond Iraq to fall into line with allies. And the Palestinian government condemns the Israeli military's shutdown of Hebron-based Al-Khalid radio station, describing the measure as a violation of international law. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. His Majesty the King condemned the terrorist attack that targeted a hotel in Mali's capital, Bamako, yesterday evening, killing innocent civilians. In a cable to Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, the King expressed his deep sorrow over the loss of lives and wished the injured a speedy recovery. Yesterday, on behalf of the government, State Minister for Media and Communication reiterated the Kingdom's rejection of all acts of terror that targets innocent lives. Malayan President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta said his country would not yield in the wake of a terrorist attack on a luxury hotel in Bamako that killed over 20 people. The radical groups Al-Murabitun and Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb claimed responsibility for the attack, which ended when Malayan commandos stormed the luxury hotel, the Radisson Blu, and rescued 170 people, many of them foreigners. Keïta's government increased security at strategic points around Bamako at the start of a declared 10-day state of emergency.
Le Mali n'est pas une zone fermée, ne sera jamais.
Mali will not shut down because of this attack. Paris was not shut down and still isn't. Geneva, New York and Moscow did not shut down either. Nowhere in the world right now are we safe from the barbarians of today. I said yesterday, these people decided to break away from the humanity we know and cherish. Our values are not there too. I said that the values of life is unknown to them, and that's why you, just like us and everyone, must be careful.
French authorities are conducting investigations into the terrorist attack on the luxury hotel in Mali and have pinpointed one of the assailants. Mukhtar bin Mukhtar, an Algerian who was once thought to have been killed in a raid, is thought to be behind the deadly attack. Last June, Libyan authorities said he was killed by a U.S. airstrike. At the ASEAN summit in Malaysia, which is traditionally an economic forum, world leaders weighed in on the Paris and Bamako attacks by addressing the issue of battling terrorism.
Like the heinous attacks we saw in Paris, and attacks we see all too often elsewhere, this is another awful reminder that the scourge of terrorism threatens so many of our nations. And once again,
British Prime Minister David Cameron said the United Nations Security Council's resolution, voted unanimously yesterday to redouble action against Daesh in Syria, is an important moment. In a statement in London, Cameron said the international community has come together and is resolved to defeat the evil. Britain is already involved in airstrikes against Daesh in Iraq, and Cameron wants to extend the operation to hit the terrorist group in Syria to fall into line with allies. He has said he will submit a plan to Parliament about the Syria strikes. In 2013, the Labour Party blocked British military action in Syria, but today, opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn said his Labour Party would support every necessary measure to protect people and would consider the proposals brought forward by the government. However, he called for a different approach to foreign policy and a comprehensive settlement of the conflict.
Would both be legal and would...
Earlier, Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said Britain should cooperate with Russia in any airstrikes it carries out in Syria. Her comments in an interview broadcast today underline Moscow's assertiveness in the region. Zakharova said any British action should be a matter of cooperation, so that steps are not directed at destroying the statehood of Syria.
If Great Britain is cautious about something, it should not do this. If there is an intention to put forward some ideas in the UN Security Council, one should have reached, of course not for the microphone, but for the telephone, and give respective instructions to the permanent representative in the UN to begin consultations. including with Russia. We have never blocked anything at the UN Security Council as far as sensible initiatives based on international law are concerned.
Meanwhile, the U.S.-led coalition targeted Daesh with 20 airstrikes in Iraq and 22 in Syria yesterday, according to a U.S. military statement issued today. 6 of the strikes in Iraq hit 3 terrorist tactical units, a command and control facility, and fighting positions near Ramadi. The attacks in Syria included 13 strikes near Ma'arra, hitting Daesh tactical units, headquarters, and 3 buildings. 1 attack near Abu Kamal in Syria struck a Daesh oil collection point. In Syria, meanwhile, an alliance of Syrian fighters said they had recaptured 2 villages from Daesh in northern Aleppo province near the border with Turkey. One group, the Jabha Shamiya, which operates in the northern Aleppo countryside, seized the village of Dalha in an assault that began yesterday, and another group, Liwa Sultan Murad, took Harjala. The 2 villages were seized by Daesh in August. The Jabha Shamiya posted pictures of 4 young men it said were captive Daesh terrorists, and said it has dismantled hundreds of mines in and around the 2 villages. Recapturing the 2 villages will help liberate the rest of nearby villages, said the Jabha Shamiya media office. In the wake of the Paris and Bamako attacks, Belgium raised the alert status for its capital Brussels to the highest level, shutting down its subway and warning the public to avoid crowds because of a serious and imminent threat of an attack. The Belgian Prime Minister called on citizens to be vigilant after police found weapons and explosives in a Brussels house. Charles Michel said police and soldiers had been deployed throughout Brussels, especially in crowded areas, after raising the level of alert to 4. Michel said security measures were decided following information received from the Organization of Coordination in Threat Analysis, OCAM, and the metro was closed, transport reduced, major events cancelled, and extra security deployed.
No, the question was why did we go to the level of threat of 4, and then the Prime Minister said there is indications that people with arms and explosions are in the region of Brussels, but we don't give any more details because there are a lot of investigations going on, and we don't want to make errors against the procedures, and then so that we don't communicate details on this.
We have sent also a message to the population to be vigilant because we have some precise and immediate information about possible terrorist attacks, and certainly in Brussels. So that's the reason why we have taken a lot of new measures to organize the securization of the country, to organize maybe some precise measures for the transportation system. Like
Turkish police have detained a Belgian man of Moroccan origin on suspicion that he scouted out the target sites for Daesh in the Paris attacks that killed 130 people a week ago. The Dawan news agency said that Ahmed Dahmani, 26, was detained at a luxury hotel in the southern coastal city of Antalya. The report said 2 other men, both Syrian citizens, were also detained on a nearby highway on suspicion that they were sent by Daesh in Syria to ensure Dahmani's safe passage across the border and were planning to meet him. Separately, Turkey deported a group of Moroccans detained at Istanbul's main airport this week over suspected links to the terrorist group. Palestinian government official Ali Abu Diak condemned the Israeli military's shutdown of Hebron-based Al-Khalil radio station, describing the measure as a continuation of the Israeli government's criminal behavior and persistent violations of international law. In a press statement, he denounced a raid and an attack on the radio station this morning by Israeli forces, stressing it is a blatant attack on the freedom of media, press, and opinion. In ordering the shutdown, the Israeli army claimed the radio station was broadcasting content that incited its Palestinian listeners to attack Israelis. Employees at the station said Israeli soldiers confiscated their equipment, including computers and transmitters, forcing the radio station off the air for 6 months. Radio Al-Khalil is the second Palestinian outlet to be shut by occupation forces this month in Hebron. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak called on world leaders to confront terrorism as he opened the 27th Association of Southeast Asian Nation ASEAN Summit and related meetings. This year's summit, dubbed Our People, Our Community, Our Vision, brings together ASEAN leaders and other regional and world leaders to discuss security and political issues. Malaysia has deployed extraordinary security measures around Kuala Lumpur as leaders from 18 countries arrived for the weekend meetings. During his opening remarks, Razak said the attackers are terrorists and should be confronted as such with the full force of the law.
Countries are in mourning. We all share in this grief. The perpetrators of these cowardly and barbaric acts do not represent any race, religion, or creed, nor should we allow them to claim to do so. They are terrorists and should be confronted as such with the full force of the law.
Back here at home, new e-government services were announced by the e-Government National Steering Committee in a meeting today at the Ministry of Information Communications Technology chaired by Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour. 8 new services can now be obtained electronically from 3 entities, including traffic tickets and real estate tax queries from the Greater Amman Municipality, 5 tax-related queries from the Income and Sales Tax Department, and 1 a certificate of non-conviction from the Ministry of Justice. The new services brings to 100 the number of active e-government services by the end of this year. The e-government project aims to improve public service, speed up citizens' queries, eliminate red tape and corruption, noted Mansour, as he acknowledged numerous delays in the implementation, but he said a plan is in place by the relevant ministries to make up for those delays. A collection of first editions of some of the world's best-loved books are up for auction at Sotheby's in London. Many of the books have handwritten inscriptions. The collection includes a first edition of Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, estimated to sell at between $230,000 to $305,000 US. Other first edition books by authors John Steinbeck and James Joyce are also being auctioned, amongst others.
This sale on the 24th of November has some exceptional presentation copies. The sale is centred around that theme. So we have magnificent presentation copies by Oscar Wilde, James Joyce, T.S. Eliot, T. Lawrence, some of the greatest names of 19th and 20th century literature.
And you thought the selfie stick was just for taking selfies? Apparently there are more ways to handle it. One Russian combat sports center has brought personal defense methods to a new level, applying self-defense techniques to the selfie stick. The center in Moscow has recently launched a new course for those who feel vulnerable, posing for a photo with a precious smartphone in hand. Though the techniques aren't meant for a big fight, they could, however, distract the attacker and give someone a chance to escape. Leaders and champions Barcelona thrashed Real Madrid in El Clásico at the Bernabeu 4-0, putting them 6 points clear at the top of the table. Suarez opened the scoring in the 11th minute and Neymar added a second in the 39th. Iniesta gave Barcelona the third goal in the 53rd minute, and Suarez again closed the game with a fourth. Around 80,000 fans packed into the Bernabeu, while some 500 million around the world watched the El Clásico. Prior to the match, both teams paid their respects to those killed and injured in the Paris attacks with a minute's reflection. La Marseillaise, France's national anthem, also rang out at all 10 Premier League matches played today. The Premier League called for the national anthem to be played after the coin toss to all games today. Tennis world #1 Novak Djokovic reached the final of the ATP World Tour Finals in London after beating Rafael Nadal. The world #1 Serbian, bidding for a 4th consecutive title at the season ender and a 5th in total, launched an early onslaught, cruising to a 6-3, 6-3 victory. The final is tomorrow.
Djokovic.
And finally, continues to be cold for the rest of tonight with light variable winds. Tomorrow, fair conditions prevail in the hilly areas during the day, while it continues to be moderate in the Jordan Valley with southeasterly moderate winds. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect warm conditions with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Here now to look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. His Majesty denounces a terror attack on Bamako yesterday that killed over 20 people. And the Malian president says Mali, like others targeted, will not shut down because of the attack. Russia's foreign ministry says London should cooperate with Moscow in any airstrikes in Syria, as David Cameron plans to extend the UK military operation beyond Iraq to fall into line with allies. And the Palestinian government condemns the Israeli military's shutdown of Hebron-based Al-Khalil radio station, describing the measure as a violation of international law. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alit Khan. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.